The Strain Season 4 premiere, The Worm Turns. Definitely a great premiere. We're going into our final season, which is crazy to think, but this is going to be the last season for The Strain, and I'm very excited to see what we get. I love the way they started it with, of course, with the way the last season ended and basically me, like, completely writing off the kid as a character. Like, I never thought I could hate a character so much. We skip 9 months. So we skip 9 months and we find out, of course we start with F as the main character, but we find out that he's no longer in New York City. He's actually in Philadelphia. So I was like, alright, well, that really surprised me. I figured, he wakes up, he's trying to get some food, it's a bunch of close-up shots. I just assumed he's somewhere hiding in New York. And we find out that he's actually on his own. Like, he's in Philadelphia kind of just by himself, doing his own thing. There, of course, is like this, this grand commercial that they have before the intro plays, and it's like, we're doing this and we're working together. And I thought for sure somewhere in that commercial we were going to see the master who took over Palmer's body, and I thought he was going to show up there like, we're doing this and we can work together, and for whatever reason, because they don't really give any explanation to this, but I assume that all of this is based around the master still. But it's like, with the nuclear fallout, like, blocking out the deadly UV rays from the sun, we have, like, they don't say Strigoi, I forgot what term they use, but, the monsters. There's, like, our counterparts aren't, kind of going crazy. They're allowed to walk around in the daylight, and it's like, there's one that, like, opens up a door and stuff, and I'm like, I'm super confused here, because they don't explain it at all through, like, the whole episode. I'm like, alright, well, it's one thing to have them be able to go out during the day, which we saw at the end of the last season. It's another thing for them to suddenly just stop and kind of just be a part of, normal society, and then they kind of track down people every once in a while, and I guess the master's just, like, super lazy about it, because he's not possessing the Strigoi to, like, find F, because of course F thought he was gonna get chased down early on in the episode, where we see one up top, which that was when we first see that they're actually a part of society, because I thought he was looking up like, oh, there's one up there and it's gonna try to drop down on everyone as they're, like, getting their supplies and everything, but of course someone will come along and just, like, take it down. I didn't realize that the one that was on a leash was being held by another Strigoi. I thought that was, like, just a person. I was like, well, that's kind of weird that they would do it that way, but, that's their way of kind of domesticating it or whatever. And then it was like, nope, they're actually just Strigoi walking around, and they're chasing people down. Like, they killed this one dude for whatever reason, and so F is like, oh, crap, it's not, they weren't coming after me. And that's when we get our commercial and stuff, and I'm like, very interesting. Palmer doesn't show up, of course, taken over by the master, but still confused with the whole, Strigoi just kind of walking around, and it's like, oh, no big deal or anything like that. And I was just like, I don't understand at all how this is playing out. Like, how did it get to this point 9 months later where the Strigoi are just like, oh, we have this sort of complacency at this point 9 months after this crazy event. And, of course, a lot of people think, like, basically mankind is lost at this point because they're just, Strigoi are just strolling around during the day and people aren't really fighting back. So it was very crazy to see, and I do hope we get an answer sooner, rather than later, as to exactly how this weird sort of work arrangement basically is what it is, how that ended up coming to be, because the whole episode I was just like, I don't understand this, but they don't really talk about it at all. So I hope we get an answer to that, like I said, sooner rather than later. But I thought that was very interesting, because, like, there's this whole thing, and people give blood a bunch, and they don't really know why. And I was like, okay, are they giving blood to save the Strigoi? Which seems to definitely be the case, because when F goes, like, behind the alleyway, he sees the Strigoi, like, they're kind of posting up his guards, and he sees the one talking to the guy, and he's putting all his blood into what's, supposed to be, like, a water tanker. So it's like, alright, well, they're taking all this blood. I would assume that that's to keep all the Strigoi alive and, keep them as strong as possible. And that's why I'm just kind of waiting for them to be like, yeah, this whole new thing that's keeping everybody living and working together definitely came from the master, parading around as Palmer. Like, I'm putting my resources and my money into making this new thing, and then at the same time it's like, hey, look at this. They aren't going crazy. Also, if we give them blood, because even the whole commercial was super weird, because it was, like, super ambiguous about everything that was happening. It was just like, this is where we are right now, and everything else was like, why are they giving blood? What's happening here? Why does this woman have to, like, leave to give blood? Why isn't it just like, I go here and then that's it? It's like, I'm giving blood and I have to, like, go away because I have like AB blood or A negative or something like that. I was like, this is really confusing and really creepy. So a lot of questions came up from, like, everything during the first part of the episode, but really looking forward to getting some answers to that. And then, of course, we have Fett in this episode, who is not with Dutch, he's with a new woman named Charlotte. So I was kind of surprised because I just assumed it was going to be the two of them. And so it's him with this new woman, and they end up going to this camp. And it's like, all right, simple question, but you always got to have the random human characters that are being douchebags. And it's like, look, we came here, we wanted to trade a little just simply for information. And basically, Fett's storyline, which we find out is also Quinlan's storyline, is that they're looking for an unused missile silo, which I thought was a really cool idea. So I'm sure with it being a missile silo, that's probably going to take quite a bit of time before they get things up and running. But I thought that was a cool storyline, just, right off the top. I was like, all right, so they're searching for a missile silo, Fett and this new woman, Charlotte, they get basically held up. It's like, we're going to hold you guys up, take you back to your camp, kill you, and then take her. And Quinlan comes in, and he's just stabbing people and snapping necks and stuff. And I was like, well, that's super cool. He comes in, and it's like, yeah, well, they didn't have any information. But, of course, things just kind of keep going, and we get to see Satrakian through, like, this dream sequence. So I would assume is still alive. Same thing with Dutch. We don't really get to see either of them officially in the episode. So they're somewhere. We don't get like any glimpse of them at all. They're the only two characters missing are Satrakian and Dutch. So it's like, I don't know what's happening with them. Maybe the two of them are teamed up, and we'll get to see that next week. I haven't seen the promo because I actually had to like watch it online. So I don't really know, what the next episode is going to be about. But those are the only two characters we don't actually get to see. So I'm very curious if maybe both of them are in New York. If especially with Quinlan as well as Fett kind of taking off, I would assume none of the main characters are in New York outside of the villain characters and the kid, who at this point I'll just consider him a villain, or at least pointless because I hate him. But we don't really get to see them. But of course, going on this mission to find a missile silo. Eventually, while they're like shucking corn, these women come up. They kidnap Charlotte as well as Fett, knock him out. He ends up meeting with this dude Roman. He sees his jacket. It's like, hey, you worked in the missile silo. Turns out the missile was never shot, so they find the missile silo. Quinlan ends up tracking them down, slaughtering a bunch of people, and it's like, hey, we got missiles to find, so they'll probably be doing that in the next episode. Then, of course, we have our villains for this episode, and we have, I'm very excited for this. Icor's Mad has me super excited. Like, it was in, like, the first scene with him where the master's like, we're going to go out and do some training and stuff, and they give him the gun, and he's like, but first you're white, and he does the little drop, and they have it on, I really can't remember the kid's name. That's the weird thing I have, where it's like when I hate a character, I don't even care about remembering their name, even if I should be doing a review. But they had it focused on him, and then it cuts to Icor's, and his face was just like, like I'm super pissed off right now, because he knows that, or at least based off what he's seeing, like the master has a lot of hope in this kid. And of course, as the episode goes on, the master is like, hey, I want to take this kid over. Like, I want to basically raise him as a part of us, and he has the physical training. We'll teach him what it means to be stronger than weaker creatures. They take him to the zoo, and he kills a tiger, which is weird that the tiger was even still alive, but I don't know. So they do that, and then the master basically mind controls him, and I think that was like a part of the white, and it was like he could make him see what he wanted to, so he makes him see his mother, and I thought that was great, where he's like, I'm confused, and it's like, don't worry, and it was like, I kind of felt bad. I was thinking about how you and Dad used to bring me to the zoo all the time, and of course he looks at this tiger he just killed, and she turns him and is like, don't worry about that, don't let your dad's way of thinking, like, she didn't say weak, but it was like kind of like right in there. It's like, don't let your dad's way of thinking kind of bring you down. And I was like, that's a really cool way to do it. And of course they cut to Icor's, and he's smiling, and then it's the master actually hugging the kid. So I was like, that was actually really awesome. I definitely like that for sure. And that's the only part where Icor's actually smiles. So it made me curious. Like the whole way through, he was mad, but at that very last moment, I guess it was something to it. Where it's like, okay, he's I don't know, like something about him was like, all right, the master's doing what he wants to do, and it's definitely playing out pretty well. So, thought it was interesting, but I'm just expecting Icor's to kill the kid, or at least attempt to. I don't know if that's how he's going to end up dying, if like he's ultimately going to end up betraying what the master believes is, the ultimate plan, and then he just kills Icor's himself. But I don't know. They set the siege real early in this one, so I'm super excited for that. But ultimately, I thought this was a great first episode for the season. Having the characters all split up, F is doing his thing, just simply trying to survive. He kind of takes on a few missions with, like this random guy who trades goods and stuff. He helps this woman who, it turns out she has like scurvy because she didn't have any vitamin C. And he goes back to the shop. They, of course, have to deal with the Strigoi. They get captured for, whatever reason. And then the bus ends up being attacked, and it blows up. He escapes. He finds, I believe it was a brother and sister. And I love that scene because he's helping the dude out, and the woman like holds the gun up to him and stuff. He's like, I'm trying to help him live, and he's like, don't worry. And so then they have this conversation where it's like, where did you come from? He was like, I was on the bus, and he was like, they have humans in the bus. And I thought it was the perfect thing for him to say, or like the perfect way for him to feel, because he's like, you guys have been blowing up all these buses, and you never knew that they transported people on them. And then he was like, I was the only one who was able to escape. And she was like, you're welcome. He was like, yeah, thanks. And I was like, that's exactly what I would have said. Like, yeah, you just barely killed me, and you definitely killed everybody else on the bus, and who knows how many other people, because you guys just blow up the buses without even knowing. And she's like, you're welcome. I'm like, like, you can't really be doing that by mistake. You easily could have killed me like you killed who knows how many other people. So I kind of like that scene. And then, it gets to the end where he helps the guy out, and he's about to take off, but he decides to stay because, she kind of gives him like that sort of normal speech, and it's like, crap, I'm a good guy, so I'll stay here as long as you got supplies. So I feel like those two characters will probably be fairly important, at least for the next couple of episodes. I don't know if they'll be adding, new main characters, but, we'll ultimately see how that plays out. Like Roman, I think he'll probably last for, if not the whole season, most of the season, because of course he's, he worked at the silo. Who knows if the other characters that he, all the people that he worked with are actually still alive. So that's one of those things we'll just have to kind of wait and see, because I think they mentioned that it had been quite a while since he'd been captured by those women and kind of locked up, because he was like, I went to save like my girlfriend when Illumination Day happened, as they call it, and he was like, I found out she was shacking up with someone else, and on my way back is like when I got caught. So he'd been there for like months, like basically the 9 months he'd basically just been like these random women's like mule, just doing whatever they want him to do. And so who knows, how important he's going to be. But I would assume fairly important, if even if they do have like the other characters, the other people that he worked with. I still think he'd probably be the most important just because he was the first one that they showed. But I definitely like this first episode. I'm very excited for us to go into this final season and really see how things are about to play out. I'm super excited for how this is about to work with the characters split up, how they're ultimately going to get back together. Of course, like I said, I can't wait to see what's going on with Satrakian and Dutch, because we didn't get to see either of them in this first episode. We see everybody else but those two characters. So I'm really looking forward to how that's about to play out. But I'm very excited. I thought this was a good start to the season, and I'm really looking forward to where we're headed. But of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this premiere, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And of course, we are going into the final season, so I definitely want to know what you guys want to see, like whether you know the story or not. We'll love to know what you guys want to see in this final season. Maybe certain characters fighting other characters. I would hope that all the heroes live, but I would love to know if you guys think some of the main characters are actually going to die this season, because that's pretty much how this show goes. Like ever since, well, literally every season, somebody has died off, because F's buddy dies in the first season. I believe that was the very first season that happened. Season 2, of course, his girlfriend dies. I can't even think of her name anymore because I suck at names. But she died in season 2. The woman and the cop, who were both kind of super awesome characters, both of them unfortunately end up dying in the last season, as well as, I forgot, the Silver Angel, I believe was his wrestling name. So he ends up dying. We also don't see Gus. That's another character we don't see. But like he ends up dying as well in the last season. So somebody dies like every single season. So it's like we're getting into the end of it now, and it's like, how is this gonna play out? Like, I would assume F is gonna live. Maybe Satrakian and Fett are fairly safe. I feel like those 3 characters are safe. I think everybody else is like, maybe they'll make it, maybe they won't. But we'll love to know your theories on how this season is going to play out. We'll love to know, just what you guys want to see in general. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.